in and he steals the bird. How did that connect by Edgeway?
Hello everyone, welcome back to the Amazon European Masters. We've done a little bit of a caster change, so it's going to be myself, Viperoon, and Nymaera taking us through the second half of today's fixtures. And Nymaera, we've got some absolutely cracking games. It's going to be starting off with this one, Illuminar taking on Big.
Yeah, absolutely. We do have, well, I mean, as they were saying earlier in the day, a whole 6 set of great games. So we're seeing some of the highlight plays from the rest of this group. We saw Z10 so close yet again to another one of those great victories that would have seen them out of the danger zone. One more loss for them and they're pretty much out at that point, whereas Big, they're coming up next. They need to take that win to make sure they stay level with Fnatic now. The pressure's on them.
Yeah, all of the pressure is on their shoulders. Of course, Illuminar not wanting to be drawn back into this battle. Winning this one sees them undefeated out of this group and, well, out of this half of the group stages. There's plenty more League of Legends to be had. And honestly, they've looked so good, the team from the Ultraliga.
They have found a way to survive any given early game you throw at them and teamfight their way out of the deepest of holes and teamfight really damn well. This is one of the examples of that, of course. I mean, ZAMULEK, one of the youngest players that we have at this tournament, coming out with some huge individual plays. You see Dale, one of the rookie players from the NLC, doing fairly well in that last game too. But seriously, this Illuminar team is not one that you can shrug off. This is a real big player now.
And it's an exciting group, to be sure. Some of the other ones are kind of, you've got the two at the top, you've got the two at the bottom. But this one is very much, and even Hibra and Jamal were talking about this, Z10 down at the bottom, they haven't been a free win. They haven't been an easy match for anyone in this group. We'll have to see if this is a quick or a slow game. Well, International Gaming on the blue side, and we've got Illuminar on the red.
That we do. And again, yeah, speaking about that 0-3 record, there are plenty of teams in a similar situation where you think, actually, there is every chance that someone loses a quote-unquote stupid game, an easy game where they should have really nailed it. Of course, we get those picks and bans coming through. I think the thing about this Thresh ban is that it seems to be the only answer into Rakan. If you first pick that Thresh, Rakan doesn't really want to play into it. And we've seen how impactful that champion can be. Very interested to see if the Rakan priority is higher now because of that. And I'm sure that both of these playmaking supports would enjoy that.
There's a couple of really strong options as well across the Rift. We've seen the Viego, Xin Zhao, Lee Sin trifecta in the jungle. That's all still up and available, so Big could look in that direction with their priority, and they'll do just that with Lee Sin being knocked in.
Okay, and we've seen some fairly incredible Lee Sins before, and I believe that in both their previous matches in this stage, it has been banned against Big, so getting themselves that Lee Sin, presumably for jungle there. I mean, it does have that flex, and we saw Cabashot have that incredible Lee Sin top game for K-Corp versus Vodafone Giants. Does have a little bit of flexibility, but again, I'm kind of wondering about the power picks we've seen throughout this tournament, namely the Viego, which has been locked in, and that Rakan we mentioned just a little while ago. Now we have to see Illuminar. Are you going to go back towards your scaling control mages? Do you want to lock one of those in early? Because actually they've managed to shoulder a couple of bans on that player before of Escik and not really care about it. Instead, no, it's going to be the Rakan. The two power picks of the group stage locked in for our Polish reps.
I mean, Charm staying on brand with that one. We'll have to see what's going to be going into the hands of the other players on Big in the second rotation. Of course, if there's Lee Sin's going top and the Xin Zhao's available in the jungle, there's a couple of other strong pickups. Looking at marksman, looking at support, the Aphelios has been pretty nutty so far this tournament. We'll have to see if they decide to go that direction, but it's going to be the Irelia being locked in.
Okay, so one of the questions I had for Big as a team is, okay, what's going to happen? All right, okay, Rakan really doesn't want to dive in now into both of those champions, but what's going to happen with Rika? Because actually Big, when they made their huge bottom to top of the gauntlet run in the Prime League, it was off the back of Rika really stepping up. We talked about this in the first match that we covered from Illuminar between us two, actually, saying, oh no, it would have been the game before that when we saw the Irelia locked in by Z10, saying, all right, okay, this counts as the control mage pool, which Escik always goes towards. This was a very telegraphed pick coming out from Illuminar. It's into a counter lane matchup, and if Rika steps up to those previous levels of talent and skill which he's shown before, this could be good signs for the German reps.
I mean, Illuminar have walked directly into it, and we spoke a little bit about Illuminar having maybe a couple of hiccups in their champion select stages where they can be exploited. No one's really been able to because the players are so good. But we know how good this Big roster are, and if there are players who can come up, step in and go, right, we forced you into counter matchups, we forced you into something a little bit less optimal, then they're going to be the ones who could maybe look to exploit. And now we're into our second round of bans. It's bot lane across the board. Yes, the Rakan's been locked in, but that's it really. So Kalista going to be the first one moved, and Zarya soon to follow.
And I would imagine something like an Ezreal is not a bad ban from Big as well, unless they want to snap that up for themselves, because you look at the Kennen, you look at the Irelia, and you think, I don't want to be close to that. That sounds like a horrible place to be as an AD carry. That's the last of the real self-peel AD carries that can put out significant damage while staying safe, unless you want to go something like a Varus, but Varus is not great at dealing with huge amounts of dive. It's okay with like one diver where you can flash away and turn the fight around, not against Irelia and Kennen, which is also one of the reasons why Rakan is going to find it so difficult. There's so much of like this death zone set up by the Prime League team. I think that xCharm is going to have to really strut their stuff and find some creative angles to have impactful team fights.
It's a case of whether he plays that aggressive or he plays it a more defensive style. If something like the Ezreal isn't banned away here, then do you know what? Never mind. It's fine.
I'm too good. I'm just too good at this Viperoon.
You know how the game works in League of Legends on this patch. We'll have to see which direction they go and stuff like the Tristana, maybe the Varus, as you mentioned. These are kind of the options
there is
at
Ashe.
the power level.
There is Ashe where maybe, but okay, you get your plus points for this one. 10 points to. I was about to say, like, I don't really know what the Hogwarts house you'd be, but 10 points to whichever one you found yourself into on that side. Whereas on the other side, because Illuminar were very much aiming towards a more peel, self-sustaining AD carry, they weren't exactly going to be banning out, or Big weren't going to be banning out the same kind of champions which they needed themselves, because they don't necessarily need that. They're not afraid to lock in the Varus or something a little bit more aggressive themselves. They've ended up locking in that Aphelios. You mentioned that before in terms of when you lock in a Thresh, that's kind of what you pick up. Picking it up without that choice support, and actually I'm interested in what they're going to pick up now. It's going to be the Lulu. So this is hyper aggressive down in that bot lane, and for Keduii as well. This guy has been for a very long time the consistent carry, the guy who was putting out the big numbers for this team. Interested to see if they can do that again in this game, because actually, even in the games they've had so far, Keduii has been a focal point. Highest kill participation in the game, highest damage share in the game as well. A lot of emphasis on this player.
And it's going to be the Ornn to round up the two compositions in the top lane for LeQu, so a very stable top lane. And not going to have the most fun into a Kennen you've got to imagine, but it's going to be super useful in the late game team fighting situations. But I'm so fascinated by going for this more aggressive bot lane, because Braum was available, Tahm Kench was available. It's not like you didn't have peel options, but they just said, look, you've got Rakan, you've got Tristana, two mobile but relatively squishy boys down in that bot lane. We're just going to blow you up rather than wasting time with your nonsense.
Yeah, and of course, not locking in that Braum opens up the Ornn pick, which Braum was one of the old school, well, I say old school. Ornn is not that old of a champion as we go far in League history, but one of the original counters on Ornn's release to that champion was the Braum, because you put the shield backwards, as much as we saw Rux do that, maybe in a less good situation in that last game. Very good at blocking out that Ornn ultimate, and now you have backline access onto this AD carry, which you have put so much emphasis onto. Illuminar have a way to front to back.
Well, we're going to have to see if they can do so in this game. Big versus Illuminar as we make our way onto the Rift fourth time today. Plenty more action this evening in the Amazon EU Masters. But Nymaera, what are we keeping our eyes on early? Is there anything we should be particularly excited about?
Skins, because that's what I care about most in the game of League of Legends. I like this Tristana one. There you go. Cool. Glad someone's listening to me out there. It's a change. Most of my casters don't. I'm glad that we've got a friend in the
I'm not listening to you. I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
It's good to know that when I ask the analyst next to me, hey, what should we be keeping it on? Usually, I'm looking for something like, well, the jungle pathing is going to be interesting, or this lane is going to be explosive. You're like, Tristana's wearing a onesie. It's not really the angle I was going for, but you know, that's the uniqueness, you know. Bring
it back in then. All right, I think that mid-jungle TVT obviously hugely volatile from Big. You've got Lee Sin, you've got the Irelia, that is huge threat onto your Orianna. And then the bot lane as well, aggressive with a Lulu. This is a lane which can, if the Rakan misjudges the W, starts stepping around and gets polymorphed into Aphelios' active damage range, there are lots of ways where you can find individual plays from Big to start rolling through the laning phase. And actually looking at the early game stats, they do fine on their CS differential as a team. It's just the big plays go against them. They can lose some of the early fights, which sets them down. And my worry is, if Big don't roll over this early game, is this going to be the same kind of result we saw against C10, where Illuminar just eventually scale up into infinity and 5v5 you to death?
And it's such a struggle to win against the Illuminar in a 5v5, even if your team has those late game tools. And you've got good team fight options for Big, right? There are champions who can do a lot of work at all stages in those skirmishes into 5v5s. But are they cut out for it? Are they going to be able to get there as a team against a roster that has yet to taste defeat here at the European Masters?
Yeah, and I think one of the really key things that's going to happen in terms of, you know, like where the big play is going to come in, as we do see a hard trade coming in from the Irelia, does hold down the Orianna, is I really want to talk about these top laners. And I believe we have a graphic set up for these two as well, because Melonik has been individually very strong in that laning phase. And you'll see there's a bit of an odd stat down there. That's a CS share post 15 minutes. After the laning phase, we can see that LeQu is actually prioritized by his team to get more of these side lane waves into themselves, funnel them up to become relevant. On the Ornn, that's going to be even more important, whereas Melonik is the person who has done better just on their own individually in the laning phase, and you can see that by the laning stats.
And then in the late game there, hung out to dry, no farm for you. You can just ult in team fights and it'll be fine. And it's on the Kennen. So would you say that these two players have picked champions that go towards those styles that those graphics showed?
So obviously the Kennen is a lane dominant pick. I think that does definitely help you buff up those laning numbers. And I think this is actually very important for the Ornn to get some kind of XP, get some kind of gold coming to the late game, because if you can hold the door shut in front of an Irelia that wants to dive forward and you just bop them with the searing charge, yeah, that's going to be incredibly important for the, okay, let's shut up about that. We've got action to talk about.
That's only a little bit. Don't worry. They're not trying to cut off your flow too much. We've got junglers nowhere near, so it's just a flash.
Yeah, but what I really like about that, it's actually something which LPL bot lanes do quite a lot, and of course we had the LPL finals today, what an incredible series that was, is you'll see bot lanes trading summoners early just to make sure that they don't give up like it might not have led to a kill there, right, if you flash a little bit later, but it gives up lane pressure and it gives up the HP advantage. They flashed there just to make sure that it wasn't going to lead to any bad lane situations after that point, take a quick reset, and then get back into the play.
Rakan needs to be a little bit careful, because Chris has moved in, but he's going to be the one stunned up. Akabane coming in and going to get a lot of damage through, and there's the first blood. Really patient play from the Lee Sin to secure that one.
Oh, I love the micro play from this German jungler. Akabane did so well there. I mean, of course, he's French, but he's on the German roster. You get what I mean. But he ends up W hopping forward to bait out the flash and then follow through with the resonating strike. Says, okay, you can dash away from one of these. What happens with the second gap closer? Just outplays there. And the mid jungle TV2, that point of volatility is where the hammer blow strikes first.
And picking it up onto the Irelia as well is going to be really nice into this mid lane matchup. You already said that this is a pretty tough time for Escik on the Orianna, and it's going to be even harder now that she's staring down the barrel of the kill.
Yeah, and I myself am a mid laner. It's going to be the bot lanes, which is the more important though. Let's go talk about that.
I don't know how in trouble they are. Nice jump through, and Rakan, you know, just proving his nuisance. Keduii trying to get as much damage down with the flamethrower. The ignite is ticking, and the longest auto attack I've ever seen from Aphelios picks up the kill.
Yeah, tags him with the Dusk Wave. Of course, when you do hit with the Infernum Q, it does send out a little projectile afterwards from your secondary offhand weapon. Actually, even if they had a heal on top of that, you've got the extra Q reactivation to worry about. So much damage at that point. And now going back to that mid lane, good trading back from Escik, but the double buffs and the early kill giving over to Rika is a real pain in the arse, and that's what I was going to talk about. Yeah, this is something which I really feel on a spiritual level. At least Escik gets to reset, and it looks like the wave's pushing into him as well. Not so bad from the Orianna.
Let's have another look at this. So the heal was used very, very early from Big, and then they were just able to follow through.
Yeah, I mean, at the start of it, of course, used the heal for the movement speed rather than the health itself to speed up, get that first auto, and then flies into the horizon. That purple bolt of doom takes down xCharm.
And a little bit of ignite damage just ticking over to allow for that one to be the last hit, which is always good, because Keduii getting that early kill, Big are going to be big fans of that one.
Yes, and of course, Aphelios, we have seen how much damage that champion can do on various patches and various games, even in this tournament itself. And suddenly you're looking at the Irelia, who's meant to be one of the first people diving forward, the Aphelios, both of these champions being incredibly synergistic with the Lulu too, being able to use the attack speed from the Whimsy, and of course, if the Aurelia's diving in, even the knock-up from the Wild Growth can be so important to those team fights. They both have early kills now. We might have a chance to showcase what they can do around a dragon. We'll see if it explodes into anything. Looks like the Scuttle is actually being started first though from Illuminar, and it looks like Big don't want to tank the dragon, so they won't finish it.
Yeah, the dragon was already kind of being pulled away by Big, and Illuminar like, well, this is a free scuttle. You're never finishing this dragon with us in the neighborhood. So
it's a real objective.
Yeah, we'll just take the real objective and you guys can go away, which is exactly what happened. So they get something for nothing, and now it's just a case of what they can do with these tiny advantages, because these tiny advantages have built into a little bit of a gold lead. Escik now going to be ulted up. Nice shockwave, but I don't think it's going to matter. The flash forward won't save the life of the Orianna, but Rika goes down. 1-for-1 trade in the end.
Okay, it is a 1-for-1, but actually looking at where the wave is going to be, that's still going to be, I think, the cannon and maybe even Ornn. No, it's going to be an entire wave, because of course they're actually still dead. They don't even have to teleport to get back. It's the cannon wave missed out by for Escik, and this is the important difference between what Zero Tenacity did and what Big are doing, and more importantly, Rika is doing right now to Essik's champion pool. All well and good, you're going to scale up. All well and good, you're on this Orianna, which you're so proficient at, and we know how damn good this mid laner is at that champion. But if you don't have the resources, you don't have that gold, you don't get the ability to play out the team fights the way you want.
I don't know if Melonek's going to have that much ability to play this fight. He gets his ult off, and LeQ's going to chase through, goes unstoppable, but forces the flash. Kennen not going to be able to close the gap anytime soon.
Spellbook, oh no, he's caught again. This could be dangerous.
No, Rika giving a little bit of respect, has Akabane in support, but both junglers were around, so doesn't want to turn this one into a 2v2.
No, so gets out safely that time. Looks like it's actually not going to be what we sometimes see on the Irelia, and actually quite frequently see. The blade start from the Irelia. Wants something a bit more wave controlling and a bit more bursty actually in some ways too, and going for the Iron Spike whip first into what looks to be a Gore Drinker, I think, with that Kindle Gem built up. So going to be diving into the fight, going to be Gore Drinkering, getting Conqueror stacked up, and then of course having the Lulu Hills on top of them. Rika is actually going to be surprisingly hard to take down at that front line, even with the focus which Illuminar might be able to put onto them.
I mean, Illuminar have the ability to kind of focus everyone with the abilities that they have in a team fights. You know, Rakan, Ornn, Orianna, these are all big, flashy team fight ultimates. They're play-by-play ultimates because, ooh, look at the particle effects. So we'll have to see what they can do with those tools. They have fallen a little bit far behind, but it's not an insurmountable lead. It's only 2,000 gold.
And considering that Big as a team have been, on average in their first two games, 1.3 to 1.4k down, this is a good game for them to see what they can do when they are on the front foot. Of course, one of the games they were ahead of that 15-minute mark, and we'll see if they can reprise that again. xCharm sniffing out potential play, and one of the things you will often see from champions like Katarina, Yasuo, Irelia, one of the famous ones too, because you obviously hopscotch past those minions, is if you get to freeze the wave outside a tower, what do? You do this, you die.
You kill Escik, I think, is the plan, and that's exactly what he's going to do. Rika picks up the kill, and Illuminar forced back down river.
This is what we call cyberbullying. Escik really not enjoying this game so far. And oh god, the picks keep happening.
He's going to be able to get away with the flash, but Akabane just chasing him away as the Rift Herald was dropped and charged in. A few plates will be taken up, but the tower not going to be a victim, as it's going to stay standing. One plate left on this one, so it's not going to be too hard to take down in the next couple of minutes, but they don't get any picks.
I mean, but suddenly that's 4 plates. I mean, that's a whole crockery shelf at that point. You can serve a family of 4 with that one, and a lot of that gold has gone over to the Irelia. 3 and 1. The extra gold's gone into them too. I mean, at the start of this game, I was saying, hang on, where's this Rika guy gone? I heard this guy was really good in the playoffs of the regionals. Well, it looks like they're back for now. Let's see if they can transfer this early pressure into a mid-game win, though, as top lane is the calling card for Illuminar.
Melonik gonna get knocked up, but there's the ultimate coming on through. I don't think it's gonna matter too much, but a really nice double stun means that Melonik survives a second longer. LeQu, though, charges for the kill.
Oh man, so of course Ornn having to commit the summoner, having to commit to the ult, but they do find that kill, and we did say how important the Ornn would be in terms of the front-to-back team fighting, and consequently how important that Kennen would be in holding them down. They get themselves a kill onto that Ornn, and that makes this top lane matchup a lot more tenable for the Polish team.
Keeping our eyes on the bot lane a little bit. This European Masters has been a big story about marksmen in a lot of games because of where the meta's at and some of the massive talent that we have down here. Keduii and ZAMULEK. We've been impressed with both of these players throughout this tournament so far. 1 kill for the Aphelios, 6 farm up for the Tristana. Really not that much in it.
No, there absolutely isn't. And the thing about ZAMULEK is that we have seen them on the Tristana do some crazy things before. For better and for worse, they've done a bit of the Tristana Malphite jumping. And they might have to find themselves Goomba stomping their way out of this bot lane as a horde of big players do find their way down there, close to this dragon spawn. Up in a minute, we'll have to track that vision as it becomes all the more important for this fight.
Chris just going to be able to secure his blue buff. I was a little bit worried for a second. Akabane was sniffing around, but wasn't able to see what he was doing and unable to secure that buff steal. But 12 minutes on the clock, still a couple of minutes. This game has been really, really fast-paced. There have only been 6 kills, but it's been action-packed, and it looks like Big are quite interested in keeping the pressure around this mid lane. Nice kick for Akabane to get the disengaged charm over the wall. Not going to try anything, but this tower definitely some sort of a focus.
And well, what we can see there is that, of course, Illuminar have put up some of that defensive vision behind the lane, and or at least to the sides of it, say, all right, you were not going to have a Lee Sin just hopping over and kicking the Orianna into the waiting arms and blades of Rika. Now we have Chris and Charm trying to brute force their way some vision into this, but they're not going to be able to disengage this time.
Nice damage coming in as well, but Charm has to force the ult away. Chris going to be chased forward. He's trying to stumble out, but Akabane and Swords really taking the damage, and it's going to be Akabane securing that one. ZAMULEK is here to ensure no dive, but it's another pick going over to Big just outside the Dragon Pit.
And there was no real counterplay you could have there. No angle for the... Oh, that's a very quick and easy solo kill.
Yeah, no nonsense there. Infernal Dragon for Big secured as well. They go from kill to objective.
And this is now suddenly getting to the point we're thinking... That's a very big lead. That's the point where you think maybe there isn't a way we can start team fighting from this kind of deficit. We could see in that play even from the retreat, Illuminar were potentially going into a flash Irelia ultimate as Charm was trying to help Chris disengage. Of course, they couldn't end up, of course, Rika didn't end up engaging in that sense, but the threat was always there. And just having that threat to make sure that the fight is so firmly in favor of this Prime League team is so important for them. You're going to see that here, actually, because, I mean, look at what Rika does, because yes, this is going to be the chase down from the Lee Sin with the extra move speed, all the extra combat stats. Rika is just sat there. You can't walk in as the Orianna. Charm can't walk up any further either, because the flash over the wall means certain doom if you commit. And then we have this lovely bit of individual outplay from Melonik.
Yeah, just going to be popping the ultimate, couple of autos. Oops, your uncle.
It's close run stuff, because you're looking for the knock-up into the tower, because if you kill the minions, get the knock-up, that's a tower shot, potentially another one too if you end up getting your ult through. I think it's a bit of a miscalculation either way. You are most likely going to die before the ultimate even hits, but you can understand the mentality, and I appreciate the boldness of at least going for that play from LeQu.
Making the attempt, but at the end of the day, didn't come off, and the tower plates have come off there. Escik needs to be very careful. He's just been bullied once again. Akabane cannot find the Q, so cannot find the kill. And now Charm and Chris looking for the flank. seaz is here though, and the damage going towards Rakan, who's going to be focused down. But Akabane needs to be super, super careful. The Lee Sin moving around, finds the Viego, and it's going to follow through. Charm has gone so low, and he's trying to get away. The Ornn is good. First going to fight goes on to Escik. He was the target initially, and he's the only one who's gone down so far. Keduii in the wings, can't find anything though, and this fight might have turned into a siege. They're going to look towards LeQu on the Ornn, but he's going to be able to just trot away. Irelia, nice ultimate coming through, forcing the flash out of members of Illuminar. They get out, but they're going to lose this tower.
And need I just highlight, that's only 4 members from Big there. They find themselves the first pick, and that means that it's only a 4v4 in that mid lane, while the Kennen still free pushing, and while LeQu, we brought up that stat, they do get themselves a disproportionate amount of CS actually from this timestamp at this point. It's Melonik that's being left alone in the side lane on the Kennen right now, and they're becoming a powerhouse without even having to be involved in these fights.
Well, they have to bring LeQu down to save members, because that massive Ornn ultimate was really impactful and positive, and they lost the fight. So imagine what would have happened if the Ornn ult hadn't have been there.
It is very much, it's the emphasis on the rear guard action, right? It is basically saying at least no one else is going to die, rather than getting to turn around, see if Chris can get a play hit. Doesn't have the Heartbreak Strike, they're going in pretty deep.
Rika doing a decent amount of damage, trying to cut down this Viego. The sustain really isn't there yet, and it's going to be another kill going over to the Lee Sin. Rift Herald will go that way as well.
And very quick and easy, and honestly, that's a little bit of a lazy approach from Illuminar. You walk in, yes, okay, you think maybe you can start getting a steal, but if you don't go in with like decisive form at the right time to get that steal, you're just going to die for free.
The gold leads, it's something. It's, what, 7K? 7.5K at the 16-minute mark, which is pretty noticeable. Big definitely got the steering wheel on this one, and Illuminar in the passenger seat. What can Illuminar really be looking towards in this game if they want to start coming back? Fight is in the offing. Looks like there's a pretty big one. LeQu in a lot of trouble. He's the one at the front line, but he's going to be the one going down as XCharm jumps away. Escik taking the damage on as ZAMULEK goes over the wall, but I don't know how long he's going to be able to survive. Chris definitely not going to be able to survive this one. A decent chunk coming on down. Huge fight. Illuminar losing 3 members. They've got their bot lane, but they're going to lose their bot lane tower as the Rift Herald is dropped. That's going to be one charge. They could look to force through another one.
Hey.
The top side, Rika going to be able to grab himself a tower on his own right. 3 kills, 2 towers. Excellent times. Nymaera's back.
I think I am back. A couple of internet issues. I mean, maybe these fights are just going too far off the rails that even my voice can't be allowed to come through that. And Big are continuing to snowball this game. We were asking so many things about what are they going to do about this early game? Haven't had the best stats. Are Illuminar going to be able to team fight their way back in? And it seems like while I was gone, no, the answer is no. Have a ghost on your Ornn or not. It's not nearly enough because they get polymorph. They just get shunted out of this fight. And this Ornn not being ahead is a huge issue for this team. They don't have the ability to front to back at this point because the top lane has fallen so far apart.
And now Big going to be able to move on to this dragon. Third of the game secured super easily. There's not really any opportunity for Chris to get involved, and I don't think he's going to want to. But with Soul coming up in about 5 minutes time, once this one is secured, there we go. It's going to be optimal, because if they can't get in towards this mountain dragon Soul, fights become even harder to win. They're not winning them already.
Absolutely, and when you have double Gore Drinker, when you are going to have a Zhonya's built up sooner rather than later onto Melonik, the amount of gold that they have too, the shields which you get, the amount of time which you can buy between a Mountain Soul, everything starts to stack up to the point where you're looking for the first reset on Viego and you aren't going to find it. At this point, Chris is sat there at 0-4 with a Sundra, and that's good, but in the same way that we're talking about, actually Matchgo, when they played the Nasus mid, this point was brought up by Foxdrop. It's like, okay, cool, you've got early gold, that gets you your damage. When are you going to get your tank stats? Because it applies to both these champions. Go Sundra into something like a Starex, into something a bit tanky, because you look at Chris here, he can't stand and fight what Rika wants to do, and yeah, this is what happens.
When the ultimate's going to be used, ZAMULEK's the first victim, Chris is going to be the second. It's super easy for Big. They can go all over the map. Nothing is owned outside of the base by Illuminar anymore, and the siege might well be on.
I think it definitely will be at this point, because you, I mean, at least they can flow around the map. What they're actually choosing to do is pushing one wave and then go back into the middle, because they don't have the best range on their Irelia, who needs to dive under that tower, nor do you really think that the Aphelios is going to be free hitting the towers to the point where actually Illuminar need to back off, because they just used that ultimate in that team fight from the Irelia. They don't feel like they need to dive. They're going to reset, probably move back up towards the Baron, maybe even do it on spawn.
And that's exactly what they're going to do. It's going to be very easy for them to take down. They've got the Aphelios, they've got the damage. They've all just turned up now. Illuminar having to clear out shop and might have an idea that this is going on. They do have a couple of wards in the neighborhood, but not necessarily on the objective itself. And I don't know if there's much they can do in contention.
Oh, that's too late. They're trying, but they're too late.
It's a stolen ward already. Will he be able to do so? No, he can't. It's secured by Big. They're going to secure the Viego as well. Akabane thinking about going on to Escik, but won't in the end. Baron on 5 for Berlin International Gaming.
The fact that he gets into the pit is very scary for the Prime League team. We can see that there is one ward left, and it's a control ward to secure an angle of approach, one route into the pit, and Chris damn nearly gets him. He gets him with 1,000 HP left on it, and that's only one auto attack off of being in smite range themselves. That could have been the miracle play. Sadly, it is just adding to their woes, and Illuminar will now have to fight back yet again and see if they can find a miracle team fight without the objective on top.
We'll have to see if they're tapped out or if they've got a little bit of stamina, a little bit of health left in them. LeQu Got plenty of health after flashing away from that play. Chris, though, not going to be so lucky. Caught out and taken down once again. And it's Rika who's stepping forward, trying to get the damage down. Will only find the tower, though, as the objectives will begin to fall. LeQu trying to get the engage coming through. That's a nice ultimate coming on down. Shotgun catches onto Keduii as well. But he's going to be able to back away. So much damage coming onto this Illuminar roster. They got the engage they needed, but they had no follow-up. And it looks like Big are going to follow up onto the inhibitor. Could press further, could look for the game.
And with the carries up but no one to protect them, what happens when a Sonic Wave hits? It means they just have to back right the way off. Chris has respawned, but who else is in the play now? It's Melonik who disconnects, reconnects, joins the team at the base, is going to be part of the victory parade.
Yeah, it's going to be easy enough. Second Nexus tower falls. They're going to be focusing in on the Nexus. Members have respawned from Illuminar. Can they defend their bare base? They get a nice knockup. They're going to be jumping to and from. But Rakan doing so much damage. Going to be able to catch out Viego with the help of Melonik. This Nexus is not long for this world. They're going to go for as many kills as they can, though. LeQu able to get back onto the fountain. The steps are the last stand. ZAMULEK free firing, but it does nothing as Berlin International Gaming tie up the top of this group as they take down Illuminar.
Okay, the race is on. Fnatic Rising. We've got them going well in one group, going in, keeping themselves up there. Big are suddenly here going, all right, let's go keep pace. Let's see if you can keep up. 2-1. This group gets very spicy from here on out.
It's really exciting to see this because it means that we've got 3 teams that are relatively within one game of each other in this group, which is super exciting. 2 tied up at the top of the table, and we've got Z10 on the bottom who are still playing well. This is a good result for them because it keeps everyone much more compacted in the standings, so they can make a miracle run in the second half. But Nymaera, were you disappointed with Illuminar, or was it good play coming through from Big, or was it a bit of both?
It's a bit of both because this is the first time we've seen that Illuminar's playstyle, by being telegraphed, can be responded to effectively, because we saw by Zero Tenacity again, we said, all right, okay, they picked the Irelia, maybe they can snowball, hold down this mage and make sure they can never get to a point they can team fight. Zero Tenacity weren't clean enough at doing that to achieve it, and Big needed a bit of time to ramp up, just like they did in the regular season. Maybe they needed some time here, but it looks like they are on time to mount themselves a comeback in this group, and that is now very scary, because coming in as a first seed from such a talent-filled region, that's something to be aware of.
Absolutely. We're going to jump to a short break now, but when we come back, we're going to be looking at that game, seeing exactly what went down. So don't go anywhere. We'll see you in a few minutes.
It's gonna flash in, and he steals the bomb! How did that connect by entry?
Fini! As EU Masters Champions!
Hello and welcome back to the Amazon European Masters. I'm still Viperoon, joined by Nymaera, and we're going to be joined for an interview by Keduii, the marksman coming out of the victorious Team Berlin International Gaming. Keduii, massive congratulations with that game. Are you happy with the way that your team performed?
Yeah, of course. Thanks.
Cool. So obviously you have played very well in that game yourself, but one thing which I'm really interested in is that, have you really been looking outside of your own team's performance? Have you been looking across these groups? And if so, is there anyone that's really impressed you, or anyone that maybe you'd want to meet later in the competition?
Yeah, I mean the two teams from LFL that are still there are really good. K-Cop and Miss. We scrim them very often, and overall those are probably like the other teams that we still have to improve on to win against them, I would say, right now. But yeah, I mean, the goal is first to obviously always get out of groups, and then to win against any team that is in front of us. And yeah, we will just take on who we ever face. But the two teams from LFL are really, really good.
Yeah, but of course the LFL is a region which has a lot of pedigree, but obviously the Prime League has a lot of that pedigree too. Your playoffs, you went, I believe, right the way through the gauntlet. You went from bottom to top, and you steamrolled through that. But coming in as a first seed, has that been something which you felt has put pressure on you as a team? Has it something which has made you proud? How have you been dealing with being a first seed of such a proud region?
Yeah, I guess it makes you proud. We are very happy we won our league 2 times in a row, but it felt like the competitive level was not there, at least this split, if you compare it to like the French league, for example. So yeah, this is now our time to actually prove that we are good, and yeah, we're looking forward to it.
I'm very excited to see how you do as well going forward. It was a really, really fantastic game, and of course tied up at the top of the group. Massive congratulations on your win, and good luck with the rest of the tournament.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Or is it always great to hear from the players and see what their kind of thoughts are, because it's different. Like you hear the casters, you hear what we have to say, but we want to hear from the Rift itself and see what is going down. But they looked so clean and concise, and you're going to see from some of these plays, Rika especially really impressed me.
Absolutely, and this is what happens when you give 1 kill over to such a swing matchup. We highlighted the mid jungle and said, all right, if this starts going wrong, this could start tipping the balance incredibly so. And we saw what happened after that point, because it wasn't just that which went wrong. Of course, we saw the Ornn trying to jump in, and the Ornn was just too far behind to allow Illuminar to set up the battle lines they'd done so well at before. And actually, Akabane on the Lee Sin as well had an absolutely stellar game, very much proving why those Lee Sin bans in the previous games had such a high value.
And this is something that we talked about before the game even started. We were saying, look, Illuminar have looked great this tournament, but there's been some question marks in draft about the way they decide which champions they're going to go for. They haven't been punished just yet, but Big are definitely a team that can do that. And just look at that top lane.
Holy moly.
And the mid lane. Oh, my words.
Yeah, that's what we call, but that is the Flame Horizon of damages in that top lane. The Ornn got to do very little that game, and of course we saw from Escik as well. Most damage on the team, but you could have fooled me, because that was an incredible mid-jungle performance out of Big.
It was so promising, and you're picking Orianna into Irelia. I don't really know what the thought process is there. It's mainly just a comfort thing, you've got to imagine.
Survive in team fight, and it didn't work.
Oh, well, it didn't work to get them the win, because it was Berlin International Gaming that managed to do that. But it's such a great time for this group. There's so many close games. There's so much going on. We're going to jump to a short break, and we're going to jump to a different group. So don't go anywhere. We'll see you in a few minutes.